bodies, the members are also supposed to be independent and not taking instructions from any government. Now, that is the theory. In reality, of course, things are always a bit more complicated, but in principle, these are expert bodies. They are supposed to be independent. They are not supposed to be political bodies. So that's a very important distinction between the treaty bodies and the Human Rights Council, again, the principal human rights charter body. Another important difference: the Human Rights Council, as a charter body, has within its purview all of the member states of the UN. So under the UPR, the Universal Periodic Review, all UN member states are subject to review by the Council. So in that sense, the Council's power, let's say, is quite broad. The treaty bodies, on the other hand, are established by particular human rights treaties. So their mandate is a bit narrower. They can only monitor the compliance of states' parties. They can't be looking at states that are not parties to the particular treaty. Their mandate is also narrower in that they're only applying the legal standards set forth in that particular treaty, unlike the Human Rights Council, where it's looking very broadly at human rights standards. But while the treaty body's mandate is narrower, it's also deeper in a sense, because the treaty bodies have a treaty with detailed legal standards, and also those rules set forth in the treaty are binding on the states' parties. The Human Rights Council may be talking about the Universal Declaration and soft law instruments with respect to all member states, but not all member states are bound by the standards that it's discussing or examining. When it comes to treaty bodies, the treaty bodies are applying legal rules that the states' parties are bound to, because those states have expressed consent to be bound by the particular treaty. So in that sense, the mandate of the treaty bodies, while narrower, is a bit deeper than that of the human rights charter bodies. Now, if we look at the website of OHCHR and we click on the tab for all human rights bodies, we see again the categorization that we talked about last week. We see on the top the list of charter bodies, and below that the list of treaty bodies. And there you have a list of all the human rights treaty bodies on the universal level that are adopted under the auspices of the UN. All of these treaty bodies are also serviced by the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights. OHCHR is the secretariat for the treaty bodies, just like OHCHR is the secretariat for the charter bodies. Now you see there a list of all the treaty bodies, starting with the Human Rights Committee, also known as the CCPR Committee. Why the CCPR? Because, of course, the Human Rights Committee was established by the Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. The names of the other committees track closely the name of the treaty establishing the committee. The Human Rights Committee has this special distinction. It's also sort of the top of a de facto status of treaty bodies. The Human Rights Committee has been around the longest, and the Human Rights Committee tends to be the most respected of all the different treaty bodies. But the Human Rights Committee is not a general human rights body. It is mandated specifically to monitor implementation of the Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. Just like all of the other treaty bodies, its mandate is limited to monitoring implementation of that particular treaty. Now, I should say, for years, the Human Rights Committee went by the acronym HRC. Now, things have become a little more complicated with the creation of the Human Rights Council. If you recall, the Human Rights Council used to be called the Commission on Human Rights, so the acronyms were more easily distinguishable because the Commission was the CHR, the Human Rights Committee was the HRC. And of course, once the Human Rights Council came into being, they wanted the use of the acronym HRC, so there was pressure on the Human Rights Committee to start going by the name CCPR instead of Human Rights Committee. Of course, the Human Rights Committee resisted this, and so it's still called the Human Rights Committee, but sometimes the acronym for the committee instead of HRC is the CCPR Committee, or the Committee on Civil and Political Rights. In this session, we're also looking at the mechanisms or the procedures that are available to the different treaty bodies in order to carry out their mandate of monitoring compliance by the states' parties. Now, the mechanisms or procedures at the disposal of the treaty bodies actually vary, so different treaty bodies have different powers or procedures available to them. Some of the most basic are available to all the treaty bodies. For example, periodic reporting, which is an obligation on the states' parties to report periodically to the respective treaty body. And the treaty bodies will examine